Welcome. We're glad you could join us for a moment to watch, maybe feel a bit cozy, and definitely explore something, well, fascinating together.
Yes, absolutely.
Today, we're looking into some really compelling ideas about how our minds actually work. Specifically, how we can perhaps sharpen our memory and, importantly, our focus.
And what's really interesting from a brain science perspective is realizing that memory isn't just this dusty old filing cabinet for the past.
Right. Not just recall.
No, it's much more dynamic. Think of it as a tool your brain uses constantly, using past information to navigate what's happening right now and even to, well, anticipate and plan for the future.
Okay, I like that memory as a tool. So let's unpack that a bit. It's not just like storing facts like capitals or dates. There
Yeah.
are different kinds of memory involved here.
Exactly. Broadly speaking, you've got semantic memory, that's your general knowledge, like knowing Tehran is the capital of Iran, general facts about the world. And then there's episodic memory. And this is the really personal stuff, your experiences, like remembering that specific coffee shop you visited in Tehran, the smell, who you were with.
Oh, okay. The personal story reel.
Precisely. And for this idea of memory as a tool for the future, it's often that episodic memory, those past experiences, that we draw on to decide what to do next.
So it's less about having this enormous database in your head and more about being able to pull out the relevant experience, the right bit of information when you actually need it.
That's a great way to put it. Retrieval is key. It's about accessing the useful stuff at the right time.
Okay. Now, something that feels like it definitely gets in the way of that retrieval or even just getting the information in properly is trying to do too many things at once. Multitasking.
Oh, absolutely.
Feels productive, right?
Yeah.
But is it actually helping our memory or focus?
Well, not really. Not in the way we might hope. When we juggle multiple things, maybe listening to this while also, glancing at emails or scrolling something else, our focus just gets spread incredibly thin.
Yeah, diluted.
Exactly. It's like our attention becomes fragmented. And when attention is fragmented, it's much, much harder for any single piece of information to really, make an impression, to stick.
It makes me think of scrolling through social media feeds, those short videos. You see tons of stuff, but an hour later, can you really remember much of it? It feels like just noise.
That's a perfect example. There's a real difference between just letting your attention get pulled around, which is what happens a lot online, and focusing with intention.
Attention versus intention. Okay, explain that difference.
So attention can be quite untethered. It's easily diverted, like you said, pulled here and there. Intention, though, that's focused attention. It's attention directed towards a specific purpose, a goal.
Right.
And what happens often is we give our attention away pretty freely, but without that clear intention behind it. And that's how you end up, clicking on one thing, then another, and suddenly you're way down some digital rabbit hole far from what you meant to be doing.
So if I open a news site intending to understand a specific situation, that's intentional. But if I just open my phone and start clicking headlines randomly, that's just attention being grabbed.
Exactly. And that constant swishing, that lack of sustained intentional focus, it really does have consequences for our memory and concentration.
What kind of consequences are we talking about?
Well, first off, memory encoding suffers. Without that focused attention, the information just doesn't get logged as effectively. It's harder to recall later because it barely went in properly in the first place.
Makes sense. Easier to forget.
Definitely. And over time, this habit can actually weaken your overall ability to concentrate, even when you want to focus. Plus, it's just inefficient. Constantly switching tasks means your brain has to keep reorienting itself, which takes time and mental energy. Some researchers call it attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah, like even when you switch back to task A, part of your brain is still thinking about task B that you just switched from, so you're never fully engaged.
Wow. Okay, that really paints a picture. You never quite get into that deep work zone. Now, the title of the book you mentioned, Why We Remember, that's interesting. It emphasizes the remembering part, not the forgetting. What's the idea there?
The core insight really is that forgetting lots of details is actually normal. It's a natural brain process. What matters is what we do manage to hold on to.
Okay.
And the things we're most likely to hold on to encode strongly and retrieve later, are the things that connect with our goals, our values, the stuff that feels personally important or relevant to us.
That feels intuitive. Like back in school, you probably remember more from the subjects you actually cared about, or the ones you could see connecting to, I don't know, a future job or interest.
Exactly right. The things that felt relevant stuck better. The rest, maybe not so much.
So how do we use that insight?
Well, A really powerful technique to boost your memory is to consciously make that connection. When you encounter important information, actively ask yourself, okay, why do I need this? How does this relate to my goals? Where will I use this?
Ah, so you're deliberately linking it to a purpose.
Yes. Recognizing that why behind the information acts almost like an anchor. It tells your brain, hey, pay attention, this matters, and that significantly boosts retention.
Understanding the why helps the what stick. Got it. Now, another thing that seemed to help things stick is just being curious.
Oh, hugely important. Curiosity is a fantastic catalyst for memory. There's good research showing that when we feel curious about something before we get the answer or the information, our brain activity changes.
How so?
It releases more dopamine, particularly in brain regions involved in learning and memory. Dopamine is crucial here.
Right, dopamine, the reward chemical. So being curious actually makes learning feel more rewarding.
In a way, yes. It primes the brain, makes it more receptive, more ready to absorb and hang on to the information. When you're curious, you're naturally more engaged, more attentive. It just facilitates the whole memory encoding process.
Okay, that's powerful. But what if?
Yeah.
What if you're faced with something you have to learn or remember, but you just don't feel naturally curious about it? Can you generate curiosity?
That's a great question. And yes, you can cultivate it. This is where something like mindfulness practice can be really useful.
Mindfulness. How does that connect?
Well, mindfulness in this context means intentionally bringing your full awareness to whatever you're experiencing or learning right here, right now, even if it seems boring at first.
Okay.
By consciously directing your attention to the details, really looking, listening, engaging your senses, noticing things you might otherwise ignore, you can actually spark interest over time. It's about choosing to be present and engaged.
So instead of passively receiving the information, you actively focus on its nuances, its details, even the mundane bits. And that act of focused attention itself can kind of kickstart curiosity.
Exactly. It's about active engagement. Which brings us to the flip side, something that can actively hinder memory, which is sometimes called mindless documenting.
Ah, I think I know what you mean. Like being at a concert or a beautiful viewpoint and immediately pulling out your phone to take pictures or videos.
That's precisely it. And the potential downside is that when we're so focused on capturing the moment, we might not be fully experiencing it. Our attention is on the device, on framing the shot, not necessarily on absorbing the actual event through our own senses.
Yeah, I've heard people say they have phones full of photos from trips or events they barely remember actually being at.
It happens a lot. It's almost like the act of recording outsources the memory. The research suggests that being actively present, mindfully observing, is generally much better for forming strong personal memories than just passively recording.
So the advice isn't necessarily never take photos, but maybe be present first.
Right.
Or document mindfully.
Precisely. Be there. Experience it. If you choose to document, do it as part of being present, not instead of it. Now, stepping back a bit, we can't talk about memory and focus without touching on the bedrock, our overall physical and mental health.
Right. This seems to come up again and again, doesn't it? How fundamental things like sleep, diet, exercise are for just about everything, including our cognitive function.
It really is foundational. There was a large, quite significant 10-year study. I believe it followed around 29,000 adults, looking specifically at the impact of 6 lifestyle factors.
Those factors, what were they?
Let's see. It was sleep quality, diet, regular exercise, whether they smoked, alcohol consumption, and interestingly, social connections.
Okay, a mix of physical and social health aspects.
Yeah.
And what did they find about memory and focus?
The results were pretty striking. They found that individuals who consistently followed, I think it was 4 or more of these healthy habits, performed significantly better on memory and focus tests, like twice as well compared to those who adhered to fewer healthy practices.
Twice as well. Wow. That really highlights that maybe we don't need complex brain hacks as much as we just need to nail the basics.
That's often the case. Focusing on these fundamental pillars improves so many areas of life simultaneously: mental health, physical health, energy levels, and yes, focus and memory too.
So drilling down a bit, were there specific recommendations within those categories, like for diet or exercise?
Yes, the research often points towards specifics. For smoking and alcohol, the evidence is increasingly clear: avoidance is best. For alcohol, many experts now suggest 0 intake is optimal for brain health.
Okay, no wiggle room there. What about diet?
The Mediterranean diet consistently comes up as beneficial. Lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fish, healthy fats like olive oil. It provides nutrients the brain really needs.
Right, we hear a lot about that one. And exercise.
Prioritizing cardiovascular exercise seems particularly important. Activities that get your heart rate up and keep it sustained for a period, think running, brisk walking, cycling, swimming, that kind of thing.
Good for the heart, good for the head. It makes sense. Yeah, you're right. We have talked about sleep, exercise, and nutrition in more detail before, so folks can always revisit those if they want specifics.
Definitely worth digging into. And one final, perhaps less obvious connection that's emerging from recent research is the link between our sensory health, hearing, and vision, and even our oral health and cognitive function.
Really? Our hearing, eyesight, and dental health. How do they connect to memory and focus?
It's a newer area of study, but the findings suggest that maintaining good sensory function, being able to hear and see clearly, and also maintaining good oral hygiene and dental health seem to be associated with better memory and focus as we age.
Huh. That's fascinating. It really underlines how interconnected everything is. Taking care of your teeth might actually help your brain stay sharp.
It seems that way. The body is one integrated system, after all. So this whole exploration gives us, I think, some really practical, science-supported things to think about. Things you can actually try integrating into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the big takeaways are really about being more intentional with our attention, fighting that fragmentation, and consciously linking information to what actually matters to us, to our goals. And then nurturing that curiosity, even if we have to work at it sometimes, using mindfulness. Plus, that reminder to actually be present in our experiences, not just record them, and underpinning it all
Is taking care of the fundamentals. Sleep, diet, exercise, social connection, avoiding harmful substances.
Exactly. The basics really do matter.
They really do. So perhaps as you reflect on all this, just consider, what's one small shift? One idea here that resonates with you that you might explore a bit further. It doesn't have to be a huge overhaul, just a small step towards enhancing how you learn, remember, and focus in your own life.